Count it down and we're good. I'd like to welcome everyone back to another Comic-Con edition of Active Voices. We're here on site. We're here at the Hilton wonderful Indigo level. Still in the booth, still having a good time. And we're very fortunate now to be joined by the management and publishing team of American Gothic Press. We're very, very fortunate to have Holly and Phil with us here. And they're taking time out of their busy schedule here at Comic-Con to join us here on Active Voices, and if we can, I'd like to let them introduce themselves and tell them a little more directly about what they do.
I'm Holly Inderlandi. I'm editor-in-chief of American Gothic Press, independent comic publisher.
Hi, I'm Philip Kim. I'm the publisher of Famous Monsters of Filmland and American Gothic Press Comics.
Holly, and Phil, we're very, very happy you could join us. I know it's been a busy con. I was about to say the panel yesterday seemed to be supposed to be very well. A lot of things coming up on the horizon. We had a chance to sit down with the guys from Nice. I was going to say they didn't come out. I was going to say
that's going to be a thing.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not exactly how it should come out. The guys from Nice just a little bit ago. What's on the horizon? What's the con been like in terms of talking about projects?
Do you want to take Nice?
Yeah, I could. Yeah. Well, so Nice was originally a screenplay, and it's actually a very fresh title. They hadn't really shopped it yet, but we have a relationship with Echo Lake Entertainment, and they asked us, they said, because they're looking at stuff that we produce as comics also, and they said, hey, wait, is there a way to kind of reverse engineer this where we can take a really great script and before it becomes a movie, turn it into a comic book? And we said, well, yeah, if it's not Grey's Anatomy or something, because that doesn't work in a comic format, not that it's not a good show. And so they said, well, what do you think of, we have first one for you. What do you think of a couple of hipsters in L.A. who are assassins, and they're just, they're just douchebags, basically. But, they find themselves to be, because, I think everybody kind of has a little bit of a sociopath in them where they don't really consider or think of other people, and then there comes a time where they're on the other end of that, and then it just kind of makes them think. So it's really kind of a journey of somebody who is kind of becoming a real human being, and kind of a Han Solo character, right? Because he's just kind of out for himself, doesn't really think about much of anything. He's trying to get laid, and then at some point he's like, oh, you got to matter to somebody. You got to matter for some reason. And so it's kind of a cool story, yeah. I like it a lot.
And Holly, in terms of finding a project like that, getting it up to speed, the two guys from Nice, they are nice guys, but the two guys from Nice really credited you with helping get the project to fruition and envisioning it out of the the TV pilot stage and into the comic stage. What's that like, working with creatives who maybe haven't done something like a comic script before and getting the project to full flume?
Well, when we first took on the project, it was a very long time coming. And so we were very excited to take on the project and turn this into a comic book. And we were thinking about who we would get to adapt the screenplay, and then the original writers, the Joseph and Dagan, who you spoke to, basically said, oh, we want to do it. We want to take a crack at a comic book script. And we were like, okay, because these are first time they write a lot of screenplays, but they'd never written a comic script before.
Can I just? Our response was a no, not to them, but internally we're like, we don't have time to educate you on what we do. But
I was trying to be nice.
Yeah, but no, they said, well, just let us take a crack at it. They blew us away. Yeah. These guys are so smart and so thoughtful. It's a rarity, seriously.
Yeah, all we had to do was basically we sent them examples of what a comic script would be like, and they totally reworked the story, which was in screenplay form, and also it moved like a screenplay, and they put it into 4 issues, and they just did such a great job. And I just had to go in and perfect the story arc and just edit a few things that were unclear, but they really just did a great job with the script in general.
And in that same vein, in terms of looking at projects that you guys are interested in terms of working with creators, either experienced or perhaps new to the industry, what's the criteria is maybe not the right term, but what are you looking for in a story? What catches your eye, and what brings you into a project like Nice or any of the other things that American Gothic put?
Well, you can go first.
So, we look for projects that'll make us money. No, all joke.
In here.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I joke, but the reality of it is that we're actually looking for something that would become an instant classic. Certainly, Marvel and DC and countless other publishers do such a good job with superheroes. It's just not our. Superheroes are our thing personally, but it's just not our thing. And you'd have to have your head examined to say we want to go into Superman or superhero comics. So the thing that's interesting about the comic industry is there's a huge hole in everything else. And we looked at it and we said we want to tell Americana stories, and certainly there's a lot of the nature of a paneled story vehicle like a comic book or a graphic novel is you have to have action. It has to have constant tension. It has to have something visually attractive. So, like I said, it can't really be kind of a rom-com. It doesn't really work. So we look for not necessarily the most unique stories, but stories that just kind of feel right. If you've ever been to like a hamburger stand, and it's a standalone hamburger stand, and you're like, is this going to make me sick, or is it going to just be like a really good hamburger? That's what we're looking for, is that satisfaction. It's like, this was, like, I'm not looking for a steak meal or a lobster. I just want a really good hamburger. And that's and that doesn't mean we don't get exceptional stories too, but oftentimes in a comic book format, complicated stories don't really work because if you have too much subtext, it's hard to tell in a panel form. So, and it's similar when you deal with television. Television, and it really kind of needs to be, it can't be too complicated. So, I think it's just the story vehicle of comic books and television or Netflix series really kind of married together. And so we're kind of looking for something that flows well, something that's very satisfactory, and something that's just, just a beautiful cast. And I don't just mean looks-wise, but just people who can really kind of play the characters well and to kind of bring them to life, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah, and even though American Gothic Press did begin as an affiliate of Famous Monsters of Filmland, which is, we both also work for them, we wanted specifically to branch out and rename our comic publishing division because we aren't just looking for monster stories. I mean, we do love monsters, and we have put out comic books with monsters in them. But as is clear with our with taking on Nice, there are no monsters in Nice. There are no like actual supernatural monsters. But it's still a fantastic, violent, exciting story.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought up the Famous Monsters connection. I do want to ask a little bit about that in just a moment. But before we do, what's coming up next? We've talked about Nice. What else is on the horizon for American Gothic?
Well, I guess I'll take that. Yeah. We have a Famous Monsters puts on a film festival every year called the Silver Screen Film and Comic Festival, and what we like to do in this festival is not only accept film and screenplay submissions, but also graphic novel script submissions and graphic novels. And we publish the winners every year by American Gothic Press as an incentive for them to submit. And we have 3 titles from the past couple of festivals that we're going to be debuting digital first, either this winter, December, or early next year. Those titles are Whisper in the Woods, which is going to be previewed at the Famous Monsters Annual in October. A story called Hag, which is a 3-issue horror story about being attacked by kind of a sea hag, like a sea monster. And then Black Sunday, which is a 4-issue super, super gothic, depressing ghost story that takes place during the Great Depression.
Yeah. And then we have some series that we continue on with. We're working on the second installment of Monster World, and it's really exciting. The story's really, what we do in Monster World is we take historical events or classic lore, and we kind of explain them within the thread of the Monster World. An underground society that's been around for 5,000 years, and they kind of pull the strings, because you can imagine if you've been around 5,000 years, you're going to have a few assets or two in the world to pull the strings on. So you kind of we envelop all of what we know in pop culture and kind of explain them through an occult type of a filter. And it's just a fantastic world, and it's another one of those things. Hank Barrymore is a private detective, and he didn't really have much to live for in his life until he met this woman who basically gave him a case he couldn't solve, and he ends up solving it. But in turn, when he solved that case, he lost her. So now he hates monsters, he hates the occult, but he needs to keep doing this and taking on clients to get a clue into where she might have gone. So it's really a love story, and he just has to do a lot of unpleasant things to find her.
Romance does fit in, and in a certain way, a certain type of romance, and also, as mentioned, your guys' association with Famous Monsters of Finland, and near and dear to our hearts. Everyone caught me yesterday with my Elsa Lanchester shirt on, and so much history and so much, shall we say, even an interesting responsibility in being associated with them. What's it like in carrying on that legacy of Famous Monsters?
No pressure. No, actually, there's a lot of pressure. It's very difficult to because we celebrated our 60th anniversary this year. Famous Monsters has been around for 60 years. It was started in 1958 in a very, very different cultural landscape, and keeping that brand relevant as the years go by has definitely been a task, and an interesting one. When it first came out, Famous Monsters was just a paper magazine that was published monthly, that covered, old classic black and white horror films, and, classic monsters like Frankenstein and Dracula and all those kinds of things that kids couldn't go on the internet to find out about. And that's what was so great about the magazine. What the internet does now is it connects you to other fans of that type. Well, in the 50s and 60s, there was nothing to do that except maybe like this paper magazine. Excuse me. And the editor, Forrest J. Ackerman, was sort of he was sort of a guru for all these kids who felt weird for loving monsters and monster makeup. So how we've basically kept it going is we keep the legacy brands alive by selling licensed apparel and products that have the classic cover art, so people can still live in that classic era. We publish the magazine itself. We publish once a year as an oversized annual, because these days when people buy something in print, they really want a collectible. They don't want something they just read and throw away. So we're very focused on having a yearly magazine that focuses on anniversaries of films and timeless stuff. And then we have a website where we'll post more timely content. And then the really big thing for us right now is American Gothic Press, the comic books.
Yeah, I mean, much as what she said, the difficulty is Famous Monsters was not a magazine that looked back into the past as much. It was really more of what's cool, what's here, what's now in horror films. I mean, of course, they started out initially covering Bela Lugosi. And by the way, Bela Lugosi, 1931 Dracula, the very first talkie horror film, was only 27 years old when Famous Monsters came out. So it's as if we're looking back at Scream. So it wasn't that old, and so they were they were very relevant here and now, and to that extent, part of the reason why I think magazines in general just aren't doing what they used to is because they were the social media prior to social media. If you had a special interest, you bought that magazine. And everybody with that same interest bought that magazine. There was just no way to connect to each other. So, when social media came and it became so easy, and information flowed very freely, the magazines became less relevant. So what we had to do was figure out how to keep the people who weren't connected in the past, who are now giant luminaries like Peter Jackson, Guillermo del Toro, Rick Baker, Steven Spielberg, J.J. Abrams, you name it. These are all guys who were kids. They wouldn't be in this business without, and I don't take any credit for this, of course, but Forey Ackerman and James Warren, these guys really paved the path to kind of like a DIY, right? And so for us, it's like, that doesn't really exist anymore. So our job really is to curate and keep the legacy going. And yeah, merchandising is a lot of it, but at the end of the day, if the magazine went dark, nobody cares. So it's very important to us. But no, what I'm saying is, people would forget it. You know what I mean? So yeah. So the magazine still is the core of the engine that drives what we do. Yeah.
It's a very expensive business card, essentially.
Well, we're very thankful for it. We were very fortunate, myself and Dave, to talk to Mr. Ackerman at his very last Comic-Con when he was here before he passed. And the legacy he leaves is huge, and we appreciate the work that you guys are doing to keep it going. Well, speaking of Comic-Con, we're full blown into day 3 here on Saturday. Everything is popping as people have seen throughout the day. What's on the agenda for the rest of the weekend, and what are you guys looking forward to, if anything, before the end of the day?
I love Comic-Con, and we look forward to it every year, and we can't wait to come here and set everything up. I'm looking towards Monday now, when everything's broken down and put away. The excitement it's great. It's been probably one of our best years here. So we're really grateful to SDCC. Well, like I said, that's not what they're called anymore. Comic-Con International, sorry. And it'll always be SDCC to me. So anyway.
So will the hashtag.
Right.
The hashtag will still be SDCC.
Right.
What he said, it's really, really exciting, but it's also very exhausting, as you probably know. So we're really looking forward to, packing up and being like, yes, another Comic-Con on the bag, because it's been a great year for sales.
And then a lot of that has to do with, there's been a lot of connections we've made, and we got to get to work. And if some of these things happen, which we're pretty sure, next year you're going to be blown away. You're going to be like, you actually got to do that. So there's a lot of exciting things happening. We can't wait to go back and get that going. Yeah.
I guess the question is will any sleep be had between now and Monday?
Sleep is my favorite thing.
In fact, Famous Monsters has a party. Is it tonight? It was last night. Oh, well, epic fail. But that's okay. I'm sure it was a great party and a great time. And it's been a great time sitting down with Holly and Phil here. Really appreciate the time that you had to come and sit down with us. Like I said, really, really are looking forward to some of the projects coming out from American Gothic. Looking forward to NICE, and looking forward to a lot of things in the future. Thank you so much, and we're so glad. And continued success in everything.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And it's been another wonderful sit-down edition here at Comic-Con for Active Voices. You guys got more to come, amazingly, before the end of the day. Keep tuning in, YouTube, Instagram. We got more coming. This is your host, Jason Malcolm Stewart, and I'll catch you on the flip side.